tonight on NewsCenter. Election verdict. The Korean people have spoken through votes, that is. The ruling party loses control of parliament. The main opposition wins the largest number of seats. The newly minted minor opposition now holds a casting vote. A day after the election, a political upheaval in the brewing, prospects of a significant change in the way this country is run. Our political correspondent has a thorough analysis tonight. And North Korea has deployed medium-range ballistic missiles on the East Coast, possibly preparing for launch sometime around Friday. That's according to South Korean media reports. We have the details. NewsCenter begins right now. It is 9 a.m. in Washington, 2 p.m. in London, and 10 on a Thursday night here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang News Center. It's a brand new day for Korean politics, a vastly different political landscape with the ruling party suffering a crushing defeat in Wednesday's general election. Korean voters handed Saenuri Party a surprising setback, stripping it of a majority in parliament. The main opposition party has become the top political group in the 20th National Assembly, even though it too lacks a majority, and the newly minted minor opposition performed better than expected, holding the casting vote. Our Kim Jung-soo has a wrap-up of the election results.
Vote counting for the April 13th general election ended this morning, and the conservative Saenuri Party had to swallow a bitter defeat as it became the first ruling camp to lose its majority status in 16 years. According to the National Election Commission, the main opposition Minju Party of Korea won 110 out of the total 253 electoral districts, while the Saenuri Party trailed second with 105 districts. The splinter opposition People's Party took 25. But with Korea's proportional representation system in effect, the final figures come to 123 seats for the main opposition, the Minju Party of Korea, 122 for the ruling Saenuri Party, and 38 for the People's Party. The minor Justice Party claimed 6 seats and independents 11 out of the total 300-seat National Assembly. Although forecasts had already projected the Minju Party to prevail in the Seoul metropolitan area, the actual results were even more one-sided, as the main opposition party grabbed over 80 of the 122 seats up for grabs. But many political experts see the real winner of this election to be the 2-month-old People's Party. Co-chaired by An Cho-soo, the party now has a firm grasp on the political landscape that had been dominated by a two-party system for decades. The election outcome is also expected to have a significant influence on the next presidential race, which takes place in late 2017. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.
Following the release of the official election results, the leaders of the three main parties addressed the Korean public. A mix of victory and concession speeches. Park Ji-won has a wrap-up.
The election results were particularly painful for the ruling Saenuri Party, which failed to achieve its minimum goal of securing a majority in parliament. Taking responsibility for his party's disappointing performance, party leader Kim Moo-sung, who had previously said he would resign after the election regardless of the result, stepped down from his post this Thursday morning.
The public judged us with fierce whips, and we suffered a crushing defeat. This all happened because we forgot that politics is all about respecting and fearing the public. The Saenuri Party is responsible for all the results, and we accept it as a strict command from the public, never to fail them again.
The main opposition Minju Party of Korea, which fared very well considering the liberal vote was split with the new minor opposition People's Party in the picture, thanked the public for its support. Interim leader Kim Jong-un said Thursday morning the election results represent the public's judgment on the incumbent government, particularly its economic policies.
The Park Geun-hye administration and the Saenuri Party had to realize at this point that it was all about the economy. It is just natural that the government that failed to address the livelihoods of the people will be judged by the election. That's the power of the ballot, which is stronger than bullets.
The minor opposition People's Party also thanked the public for their votes. The party has emerged as a real winner here, as it will now play a crucial role when a majority is necessary at the National Assembly. The party's co-leader An Chol-soo said this election demonstrates the country's desire for change.
This election was not a victory for politicians, but for the people. It was a command to practice politics not for the sake of politicians, but for the people. We will be more humble and we will listen to the voices of the people.
The minor opposition Justice Party, which garnered 6 seats, also said the election showed the public's desire for change and its wish to end the worn-out two-party system. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, the crushing defeat of the ruling Saenuri Party leaves President Park Geun-hye, who has less than 2 years left of her single 5-year term, in a tough position when it comes to pushing through her policy initiatives. And that includes the nation's labor reforms. Our Song Ji-sun has the response from the top office.
Speaking in response to the Saenuri Party's crushing defeat, the presidential office of Cheong Wa-dae said the new National Assembly should strive to improve the livelihoods of the people.
We hope the 20th National Assembly will truly care about the livelihoods of the people and work for their best interests. We believe the people's demand for that has been reflected in this election.
Reading between the lines, the statement represents a call for cooperation from the newly elected lawmakers to help the administration's efforts to revive the economy. 2016 is a key year for President Park Geun-hye's policy initiatives, as it is the final year of the president's 3-year economic innovation plan and a finish line for a push for major reforms. President Park has continued to call on the parliament to pass related bills, saying that legislation completes policy initiatives. But those initiatives stand little chance of being approved by the Liberal Minju Party of Korea and the People's Party, which now have a combined 161 seats to the Saenuri's 122. Now that the conservative Saenuri Party no longer has the parliamentary majority, President Park may have to shift strategies in order to persuade the liberal parties to pass the bills crucial to her policy drives. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
The outcome of the 20th National Assembly election is even more shocking for politicians and observers alike, as its impact is far beyond the parliament. The parliamentary race this time around was expected to be a warm-up or a litmus test of public sentiment leading up to the big one next year. Our Lee Ji-won fills us in on how the general election provides a preview of the presidential race in 2017.
This year's general election was something of a litmus test for next year's presidential election, and a number of contests were seen as crucial for predicting which candidates could throw their hats into the ring next year. One of the more critical contests was in Jongno District in central Seoul. It is home to 3 former lawmakers who were later elected president, heightening the anticipation for this year's parliamentary race. The contest between 2 political heavyweights ended with a victory by the incumbent, the main opposition Minju Party of Korea's Chung Se-kyun. The win gives Chung his 6th term in parliament, in addition to positioning him as a possible presidential candidate. Chung was up against 2-term former Seoul Mayor Oh Se-un of the ruling Saenuri Party, who is also a rising presidential candidate. Another notable result came out of Daegu's Suseong-ae district. Despite the area being the conservative Saenuri Party's stronghold, Saenuri's Kim Mun-soo was defeated by the Minju Party's Kim Bu-kyum, who is now on his way to a 4th term in parliament. The most closely watched races this year featured the 3 parliamentary candidates most widely viewed as possible presidential hopefuls. One of them, People's Party co-leader An Chol-soo, defeated Saenuri Party newcomer Lee Jun-seok and solidified his presidential aspirations in the minds of voters. The Saenuri Party's Kim Mu-sung had frequently been mentioned as a possible presidential candidate, but the disappointing result for his party in Wednesday's election clouds his chances. Although he held on to his seat in the Junggu and Yeongdong-gu district, the Saenuri Party's defeat prompted Kim to resign as party chair, as he'd promised to do before the election if his party does not secure a majority of the seats. Kim wasn't the only party leader to put his presidential aspirations on the line in this election. Moon Jae-in, the former Minju Party leader, also said before the election he would not run if the party didn't secure a victory in its stronghold of Jeollado province. In Wednesday's election, the party captured just 3 of the region's 28 seats, raising questions about Moon's next move. 이지원, Arirang News.
The 2016 parliamentary election results have certainly highlighted the dynamic nature of Korean politics. What we saw in yesterday's vote will be crucial in shaping the legislative landscape of this country for the next 4 years. Our political correspondent Kim Myung-gil joins us live with an in-depth analysis in the studio. Myung-gil, fair enough to say that the ruling party was dealt a huge blow?
Yes, Kan-young, the ruling Saenuri Party suffered a resounding defeat in Wednesday's election as the party failed to gain a majority in parliament. The party decided to form an emergency committee to steer the embattled party until members pick a new leadership. It will now face problems in pushing ahead with a series of reform bills proposed by the current administration. Political observers say the Saenuri Party may even have to turn to the minor opposition People's Party for help.
Well, I think the present park now is going to have to adapt a completely new style of bargaining with the opposition parties, because she certainly is not going to be able to get anything done without being able to align with the People's Party. So now I think.
Well, Myung-gil, so the Saenuri Party has now become the first Korean governing party in 16 years without a parliamentary majority, which in turn means that the opposition bloc swept a victory in the elections. But even though the main opposition, the Minju Party of Korea, replaced it as the top political group in parliament, it too lacks a majority, which is why experts have been pointing to the minor opposition People's Party as the new victor in all.
Yes, that's true, Kanya. Well, it was certainly a sweeping victory for the Liberal parties. And the centrist People's Party was the clear winner, as the party earned a large number of votes in the traditionally Minju Party leading regions of the Jeollado provinces. But experts say the People's Party will have to do some positioning to establish itself as a strong third party.
The People's Party will certainly have to take a position or find a position from which that they can actually expand their sort of support base, and they'll have to appeal to more of the conservative voters, and will have to also appeal to more of the middle of the road voters, as well as the some of the moderate sort of liberals, and that will.
For the Minju Party, it will be given the prerogative to elect the Assembly Speaker, as it has become the biggest negotiation bloc within the parliament.
Right, but that by just one seat, because the governing party has earned 122 seats and the main opposition party 123. Now, if it's so small in margin, the Saenuri Party must be looking for ways to regain its status as the top political group in parliament by increasing the number of seats, even if it's just a few.
Yeah, well, that is true. It could be slightly possible because the Saenuri Party could try in bringing back its 7 independent lawmakers that left the party over the nomination raw and got elected. But otherwise, there's not much the party can actually do.
There's no real solution. If the Minju Party and the People's Party form a coalition, then the opposition front will highly likely lead the National Assembly.
The professor also added that the Saenuri Party's internal struggle over the candidate nominations had been very disappointing to the conservative supporters. Therefore, many conservative voters would not have voted at this election as a way of showing antipathy. And even if the Saenuri Party adds 7 independent seats and 38 seats from the People's Party, it's still below the ambitious 180-seat line needed to pass bills without opposition consent.
Right, so complicated math there in parliamentary seats. Now, one positive trend that we've noticed in this year's election, I would say, is a hint of easing regionalism in Korea. Of course, regionalism is something that has gripped the Korean politics for a very long time.
Yes, that is true, and it is slowly easing. And we've said several times that Gyeongsang-do provinces are right-leaning, while the Jeollado provinces are left-leaning. But at this election, some liberal candidates had been elected in conservative regions, and vice versa.
I do see that the regional dominance of regionalism in Korean politics is slowly but surely sort of going away, and it's being replaced by, I think, sort of more candidate-centered politics. So it's not the regionalism that dominates everything anymore. It's more a lot of it has to do with the quality of candidates and so on and so forth. So I think the fact that this.
In future elections, voters will be looking for quality candidates, which will be a more important basis for vote decisions.
Well, the 20th National Assembly election was definitely a reminder that Korean voters are becoming smarter and more assertive in handing out judgments to those that are supposed to be representing them in Parliament. Well, thank you, Myung-gil, for tonight. A good analysis and your election coverage all throughout.
Sure, Kanya.
The elections may be over and the new lawmaker-elects will soon take their respective seats at the National Assembly, but investigations on how they got there are just beginning. Over 100 lawmakers have been booked with potentially violating election laws, and if found guilty, they could be stripped of their new titles. Kwon Jang-ho has this report.
As the dust settles on the general election, it seems a new storm is in the forecast. State prosecutors announced on Thursday, a day after the April 13th general election, that they have booked 104 elected lawmakers for violating election campaign laws. That's more than 1 in 3 lawmakers elect. If any of them are found guilty, they could lose their seats and be given a prison sentence, as well as a minimum fine of around $900. The charges include negative or slanderous campaigning, bribery, and manipulation of public opinion through social media and opinion polls. The investigation covers over 1,400 people who were involved in the general election, such as campaign managers, accountants, and family members. Compared to the 2012 parliamentary elections, this is an increase of over 30%. That year, almost 1,100 people were booked, and 79 of them were elected lawmakers. Of the 79, 30 were indicted, and 10 eventually lost their seats.
Currently, the leading parties are separated by 1 seat. We don't know who in which party are involved, but the implications of the investigation could be big.
The nature of charges have changed since 2012, with a decrease in bribery in particular. On the other hand, there has been a marked increase in tampering with opinion polls and social media marketing.
It's a commercialization of politics, and the situation is pretty bad compared to other countries. The National Election Commission is working to root out corruption through election laws, but it's still a work in progress.
The prosecutors have promised to move swiftly, as they only have 6 months to present the cases before the statute of limitations on the charges runs out. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
There are growing signs that North Korea could conduct a ballistic missile launch or even a nuclear test very soon. Our national defense correspondent Kim Hyun-bin brings us up to speed on the South Korean military's watchful eye on the north.
A spokesman for Seoul's defense ministry said Thursday that North Korea is capable of conducting a 5th nuclear test, an intercontinental ballistic missile launch, at any given moment.
Kim Jong-un ordered his troops to prepare for a nuclear-tipped ballistic missile test on March 15th. We believe that there is a possibility Pyongyang could conduct a 5th nuclear test and ballistic missile launch, including a launch of a Musudan missile.
The statement comes as Pyongyang prepares for a rare ruling party convention in May, the first in over 3 decades.
Kim Jong-un wants to produce results out of the Workers' Party Congress, so there's a high possibility he will conduct a 5th nuclear test or fire Musudan or ICBM.
Government sources in South Korea also pointed out on Thursday that North Korea has dispatched a mid-range Musudan missile and intermediate ballistic missiles to Wonsan in the North Gangwon-do province, located on the eastern coast of the peninsula. And they have been sitting idle for 20 days. The sources said that there is a high possibility that the regime might be planning on firing the rockets during its founder Kim Il-sung's birthday, which falls on Friday. Experts said that Pyongyang could fire either the Musudan missile or a KN-08 or KN-14 ICBM. The Musudan has a range of 3,000 kilometers, while the KN-08 and KN-14 have ranges of roughly 12,000 and 10,000. Both are capable of reaching parts of the U.S. mainland.
South Korea's defense ministry is keeping an eye out for potential provocations from the north in the coming days and weeks. Friday is Kim Il-sung's birthday, the regime's founder, and Pyongyang is set to hold its Workers' Party of Congress in early May, the first of its kind in 36 years. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Well, neighboring countries are warning North Korea to refrain from further provocations. Of course, this in response to Pyongyang's possible ballistic missile launch movement. That regime, however, does not look like it will follow suit, with the international community's concern as it threatens to further develop nuclear technology. Our correspondent in charge of North Korean affairs, Connie Kim.
If North Korea fires a missile this time, it's speculated to have a range of at least 3,000 kilometers, covering Japan, and Tokyo is not happy. Speaking to reporters on Thursday, Japan's defense minister Gen Nagatani said it cannot deny the possibility that North Korea will carry out additional provocations and will put on the lookout. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga also said Tokyo is collecting information on the North's nuclear and ballistic missiles with its self-defense forces in ready position. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also had his words for Pyongyang. Delivering a speech at the Mongolian Foreign Ministry, Lavrov said he hopes Pyongyang will listen to the voice of reason and refrain from taking additional irresponsible steps. North Korea isolated itself from the international community even more with its nuclear and ballistic missile tests early this year, and it seems like Pyongyang will continue to go with such provocations. A spokesman for the Disarmament and Peace Institute of North Korea's Foreign Ministry said Pyongyang's access to nuclear weapons is an inevitable option for the self-defense and protection of the state from the nuclear disaster that may be caused by the U.S. This was a response to Washington's warning to impose harsher sanctions than the recently imposed UN sanctions, inferring Pyongyang will not be showing efforts to give up its nuclear ambitions anytime soon. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington held their first high-level committee meeting on nuclear energy in Seoul today. Now, this is a follow-up to their nuclear energy accord reached last year. Our Kwon So-hwa with the details.
South Korea and the U.S. have expanded their cooperation in the peaceful use of nuclear energy by vowing to hold regular discussions on anything of mutual interest related to atomic energy. This as the two allies held the inaugural session of the high-level bilateral commission on nuclear energy in Seoul Thursday, led by Seoul's Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol and U.S. Deputy Secretary of Energy Elizabeth Sherwood Randall, and attended by around 80 officials and experts in the field from both countries.
We aim to produce concrete benefits from peaceful uses of nuclear energy while upholding our non-proliferation commitments. And they are proof that President Obama's grand vision for a world without nuclear weapons is not only realizing, but indeed the best choice for all.
We are eager to expand the existing cooperation between our two governments and between our nuclear industries.
Seoul and Washington's previous discussions on the topic took place on a case-by-case basis and mainly focused on atomic materials, equipment, and technology. But now the two have adopted a joint work plan that includes the Spent Fuel Management Working Group, which involves research and development by scientists from both countries, another that ensures nuclear energy facilities always have a supply of nuclear fuel, a third that promotes nuclear energy exports, and finally, a group dealing with nuclear security issues. The meeting comes after the first bilateral nuclear energy accord between the two countries in more than 4 decades. The agreement, which was reached in April last year and took effect in November, allows Korea to expand its peaceful nuclear activity through research and potentially produce low-enriched uranium. The committee was launched in Washington last month to iron out details. Seoul's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se says the committee is a great example for the rest of the world of the peaceful use of nuclear energy. That could also send a significant message to North Korea to put an end to its reckless nuclear threats. Konsoa, Arirang News.
The National Tax Service of Korea will be joining 34 other tax agencies around the world to tackle the rising issue of tax avoidance. It's a move triggered by the so-called Panama Papers leak. But even with the global efforts to stop illegal financial activities, it seems like more troubles are dawning. Our Hwang Ho-jun reports.
35 national tax agencies around the world, including South Korea's National Tax Service, decided to tackle the rising issue of offshore tax evasions since the Panama Papers expose. Korea's National Tax Service has been assessed to have one of the best capabilities in database analysis, and the agency will proactively work with the other 34 members of the Joint International Tax Shelter Information and Collaboration to combat tax evasions through close cooperation in sharing critical information. The NTS, however, stresses the significance of acknowledging that not all usages of tax havens are necessarily illegal, and that it's risky to release the suspect's name without thorough investigation.
It can give the opportunity to those who are really guilty to destruct evidence. Conversely, it can damage the reputation of those who are innocent. That's why we want to be precautious, especially since we are the nation's tax agency.
Despite efforts of financial watchdogs around the world, the rising international fury from the so-called Panama Papers leaks is only likely to get more intense. Oxfam reported Thursday that the 50 biggest U.S. companies stashed away $1.4 trillion in tax havens around the world from 2008 to 2014. According to the Anti-Poverty Charities report, Apple topped the list with $181 billion held offshore. Boston-based conglomerate General Electric was a runner-up with $119 billion hidden in tax havens, followed by Microsoft with $108 billion. Pharmaceuticals giant Pfizer, Google's Alphabet, and oil company ExxonMobil were also on the list. The allegation is more daunting as the American corporations have been receiving trillions of dollars in taxpayer support. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
U.S. health officials have determined that being infected with the Zika virus during pregnancy causes birth defects in babies. Bruce Harrison joins me live in the studio. Now, Bruce, there was already strong evidence that the virus caused developmental problems in babies. Now, how does this announcement change the way health officials look at this problem?
Sure, Kun-young. Some experts now are saying this could be a game changer as far as refocusing efforts on stopping infections. The director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says there's no doubt now that Zika causes microcephaly, which is a birth defect marked by a small head size and underdeveloped brain.
Well, earlier this week, the U.S. Congress sent a bill to President Obama. U.S. President Obama, he said that he'll sign it, but although it's insufficient to fight the virus, he said.
That's right. Obama called it insufficient. He said it's a small step. The CDC's announcement now should make it harder for Congress to deny funding public health officials, which they say they need to combat Zika's spread. U.S. health officials warned Monday that the virus seems to be scarier than they thought, and the White House's main criticism of lawmakers' bill, it doesn't contain any direct funding.
Darlene, you may be familiar with the expression of being a day late and a dollar short. In this case, Congress is 2 months late and $1.9 billion short.
In February, the World Health Organization declared Zika a global health emergency over its suspected link to thousands of cases of microcephaly in Brazil. Brazil says it's confirmed more than 1,100 cases and believes most are related to Zika infections in the mothers. CDC now believes microcephaly is just one of a number of serious birth defects caused by Zika, and researchers want to discover the full range of brain and developmental issues that infected babies may encounter later on in life. A video released by the militant group Boko Haram appears to show some of the girls it abducted 2 years ago are alive. The video features about 15 girls who say they're from the government girls' secondary school in the Nigerian town of Chibok. They say they're being treated well but want to rejoin their families.
I saw our girls, and through their Chibok girls. I recognize some of them because we are in the same area with them. So I recognize them. They are the Chibok girls.
In the video, the girls plead with the Nigerian government to cooperate with Boko Haram on their release.
Now, Bruce, the abduction eventually led to a global campaign with a call to hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. But really this problem, these abductions extend way beyond the Chibok girls.
Way beyond just the 279 girls. Boko Haram has been known to abduct 2,000 people in the last year. They use them as fighters in their army, suicide bombers, even according to Amnesty International lately. And this is all part of their larger goal to build an Islamic emirate in northeastern Nigeria.
Right. Hopefully the girls are alive and safely reunited with their families. Thank you so much for your coverage tonight.
No problem.
Well, time now for a weather update. Let's go straight over to our Ji-hyun standing by at the Weather Center. Now, Ji-hyun, can you believe it? We're already halfway done through April.
Well, time flies, Konyang. In April, pleasant spring weather had brought us flowers and warm temperatures, but as you know, it's also the season of dust and bad air quality.
Right, you're right. With fine dust advisories being issued 4 times already in the capital this year alone. I mean, that's very unfortunate. We want to find out what the weather is looking like for tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow we'll have a typical pleasant spring weather under sunny skies, but we will not be able to get away from the dust, the air in the morning, but the air quality will improve as the day moves along. And temperature-wise, big gaps are expected with single-digit morning lows for many parts, including here in Seoul, setting out at 8 degrees Celsius in Seoul and Daejeon, while Busan and Jeju will kick off at 12 and 10. Now, southern regions had a summer-like afternoon today, and temperatures will continue to be on the mild side, with high getting up to 23 here in Seoul, 24 Daejeon, and Daegu should see a high of 22 tomorrow afternoon. A wet weekend is ahead for the entire nation. Rain will start on Saturday and will continue until Sunday afternoon, and it could rain heavily at times. But if you're looking for something to do on Sunday after the rain lets up, Seoul City will have a car-free day event on the central street of Sejongno from 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And this just coming in, a powerful earthquake with a preliminary magnitude of 6.4 has struck southern Japan, the Kumamoto prefecture in Kyushu region to be exact. Officials are still trying to assess the damages. We'll have more updates for you in our later newscast, so stay tuned. But that is our broadcast on this Thursday night. I'm Moon Gan-young. Thank you as always for staying with us, and we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.